Hello there.
This is where the fun begins.
Hey there guys, Unofficial Star Wars here. Hope you're all doing well, and in this video we are going to be talking a little bit more about the Obi Wan Kenobi show, as Rupert Friend recently responded to some of that criticism about the Grand Inquisitor, even 9+ months after the show has actually come out. We're actually coming up on a year, actually, now that I think about it, for the Obi Wan Kenobi show. But anyway, in this video we are going to be taking a read from the direct article. I'll have their article linked in the description down below for you guys to check out there as well. As they read, Obi Wan Kenobi's Rupert Friend commented on the controversial design change made to the Grand Inquisitor's head in the Disney Plus show from animation to live action. And so although the Grand Inquisitor didn't have a massive role in the Obi Wan Kenobi show, the character still appeared on screen and was met with some criticism by many of the fans. However, the actor behind the threatening villain seemed to enjoy his time playing the character, as he called the Star Wars universe an amazing thing to be a part of. Now, almost a year after the release of Obi-Wan Kenobi, some fans still have questions regarding the live-action design of the Grand Inquisitor. However, I still do stand by the best way that Dave Filoni had put it, is that what Dave Filoni says with bringing many of these characters now recently from the animation into live action, recently with Cad Bane in the Book of Boba Fett, the Grand Inquisitor, and now most recently The Mandalorian Season 3 having Zeb in live action as well, who looks beyond phenomenal, is that the way that Dave Filoni has described this and mentioned this is that pretend that the animation never existed, pretend that these characters are firstly being introduced in the live action spectrum of things, and then that the animation would be more of a adaptation for the animation. However, of course, it would just depend on how you really look at these characters. Anyway, the big thing with the Grand Inquisitor going into live action for the Obi-Wan Kenobi show was, well, the shape of his head. Rupert Friend, who portrayed the Grand Inquisitor in the Obi-Wan Kenobi Disney Plus show, bluntly had reacted to someone asking him about the character's design change from the Star Wars Rebels animated show. In Star Wars Rebels, the Grand Inquisitor has a long, skinny head, and when the Obi-Wan Kenobi show had been released, many fans quickly pointed out that the design of Rupert Friend's version of the character didn't match up with how he looked in animation. And so recently at the Chicago Comic and Entertainment Expo of this year, 2023, also known as C2E2, Friend was part of a panel of actors where to talk about Obi-Wan Kenobi. And so in a video shared by Popverse from the convention, the actor was asked about whether the studio ever even discussed making his head, well, bigger, and Friend had responded by saying that, "Making my head bigger? It wasn't big enough," he jokingly says. The person who had asked the question clarified that the cartoon version of the character had a head that was thin and long, well, more skinnier compared to the one that we see in live action. Rupert Friend bluntly responded to the question by noting the difference between animation and live action, saying that in full quotes, "Yeah, the key word there, my friend, is, well, cartoon," Rupert Friend has said. Later on in that panel, another fan had asked Rupert Friend a question regarding Jason Isaacs' portrayal of the Grand Inquisitor in Star Wars Rebels animation, that there being the voice actor of the character. Specifically, if Rupert Friend had actually watched the animated show or took any inspiration from Isaac's performance. Rupert Friend previously revealed in May of last year that he hadn't watched Star Wars Rebels. The actor went to admit that at this convention that he wasn't familiar with the character all that much, and when his journey had actually began for the Obi-Wan Kenobi show. This isn't news though, however, and it shouldn't be rather that disappointing either as well. You may think that it is disappointing and that he didn't pull his weight, and that he should have gone ahead and watched Star Wars Rebels to kind of prepare and study for his role in the Obi-Wan Kenobi show. However, many of the screenwriters and directors had actually told Rupert Friend not to watch anything into the regards of the Grand Inquisitor with Star Wars Rebels, seeing that the Obi-Wan Kenobi show does take place before the events of the Star Wars Rebels animated show, so they didn't want any of that kind of to wear off on this version of the character, essentially. And so upon learning about Isaac's role in the animated series, Rupert Friend had stated that he didn't want to do an impersonation of someone else's interpretation of the character, saying that in full quotes, "So when I got this role, I wasn't familiar with the character or the Inquisitors at all, or anything like that. So for me, it was completely fresh, a new world, new character, and I wanted to relate to that in my own instinctive way, firstly, but then I was made aware of Jason's interpretation. The the last thing I wanted to do was be an impersonation of someone else's interpretation. So I let my own instincts come through first, and then I had a look at what he had done, which I thought was terrific. Ending that quote right there, pretty much exactly what I had just explained there, saying that many of the directors and writers for the Obi Wan Kenobi show had told Rupert Friend to stay away from watching Star Wars Rebels so that a much older and wiser version, kind of essentially, of the character of the Grand Inquisitor wouldn't wear off on this kind of version of the character, essentially, seeing that Star Wars Rebels takes place after the events of the Obi Wan Kenobi show. Rupert Friend then went on to reveal that he and Isaacs actually talked to one another as Obi Wan Kenobi had released on Disney+. He stated that Isaacs would often joke around with him about how people wished that it was Isaacs instead of Rupert Friend being cast in the live-action role of the character. Saying that in full quote, and Jason Isaac basically gave me, pardon my French, over text throughout the process about why he was better, and that everyone wished that it was him out of all of that. So he's not going to let me forget that one. But if you've seen the movie we did together, Death of Stalin, where he gets a scene that he gets to gut punch me on the floor, he gets the last laugh, maybe, ending that quote right there. And I will have to say that it is news to me, seeing that Jason Isaacs, the voice actor for the Grand Inquisitor, and that Rupert Friend are actually pretty good friends, actually. I do have to say that I find that very, very wholesome and very nice. Even that the two joke about, like, the whole idea that there was kind of a little bit of a backlash at that on the Grand Inquisitor in live action for the Obi Wan Kenobi show, the two were able to kind of laugh it off at the end of the day, which is really nice. So this year, all being said, Obi Wan Kenobi wasn't the first time that Star Wars made a controversial design change in 2022. Last year, when Cad Bane had made an appearance in the Book of Boba Fett's final 2 episodes, fans immediately noticed that his head was also not accurate to the way that it looked in animation. Star Wars fans simply being, well, Star Wars fans, nitpicky. And even then, this is honestly kind of news to me to a point. I thought that Cad Bane looked beyond amazing and terrifying at that in his live action form, and that I do need some more of that character in live action. I kind of hope that he does live and that we do get a Book of Boba Fett Season 2. I mean, it is Star Wars, nobody ever does seem to stay dead, and so just like the Grand Inquisitor, Cad Bane's head wasn't as long or as thin as it was in the Clone Wars. And so, well, as Star Wars fans are Star Wars fans, fans have continued to criticize the design of characters in live action that first had been premiered in animation, but Star Wars has proven that practical effects and makeup will take precedence over CGI when it does come to character design. It is also important to remember that Rosario Dawson's version of Ahsoka had faced a lot of backlash too when it was first seen in The Mandalorian Season 2 that her Leku was not being accurate with the animation from when we last saw her in the Star Wars Rebels. But really at this point, I'm, well, quite honestly used to it, and in a perfect world, Star Wars would be able to make live action characters look perfectly in sync with their animation counterparts, but when there are actors actually in costume, some changes have to be made, and well, that's fine. That's the beauty of being able to have different versions of these characters in a way throughout different media. Let me know what you guys think about this in the comments down below. I would love to hear what you guys all think of having many of these new Star Wars animation characters coming into live action, as I had mentioned recently with Zeb in The Mandalorian Season 3. Let me know what you guys all think about this in the comments down below. I would love to hear what you guys all think. Anyway, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Thanks so much for watching today's video. Have a great one, guys. Peace out.